pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much,
Jai.
Prabhu, for doing the wonderful Mangalacharan. I'm really sorry. I was a little late. I had some challenges. Okay, so Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you for joining in. I'm sorry to ambush you in the
Right.
last minute. I just got a call from Prabhuji
That's okay.
that he won't be able to join in. So I quickly thought of you and you responded to my call. Thank you very much. For
Jai, thank you very much.
So Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad
It's always a
Bhagavatam.
pleasure. Thank you.
We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 13, which is Dhritarashtra quits home. And today we have three texts, text 36, 37, and 38, Prabhuji. So
36, 37. Okay.
37.
Jai. So please forgive me, I haven't prepared and I didn't even look at the verse up to now. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and then I'll read through the purports. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, that's perfect. Hare Krishna.
Jasruni panibhyam vishtapatyam manam atmana ajata satrum pratyute prabhupadav anushman. Translation. First he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthira. Translation. Sanjaya said, "My dear descendant of the Kuru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles and Gandhari. O king, I have been cheated by those great souls." Sorry. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That great souls cheat others may be astonishing to know, but it is a fact that great souls cheat others for a great cause. It is said that Lord Krishna also advised Yudhishthira to tell a lie before Dronacharya, and it was also for a great cause. The Lord wanted it, and therefore it was a great cause. Satisfaction of the Lord is the criterion of one who is bona fide, and the highest perfection of life is to satisfy the Lord by one's occupational duty. That is the verdict of Gita and Bhagavatam. Now there's a footnote to that sentence, which is a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can read those later. Dhritarashtra and Vidura, followed by Gandhari, did not disclose their determination to Sanjaya. Although he was constantly with Dhritarashtra as his personal assistant, Sanjaya never thought that Dhritarashtra could perform any act without consulting him. But Dhritarashtra's going away from home was so confidential that it could not be disclosed even to Sanjaya. Sanatana Goswami also cheated the keeper of the prison house while going away to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And similarly, Raghunath Das Goswami also cheated his priest and left home for good to satisfy the Lord. To satisfy the Lord, anything is good, for it is in relation with the absolute truth. We also had the same opportunity to cheat the family members and leave home to engage in the service of Srimad Bhagavatam. Such cheating was necessary for a great cause, and there is no loss for any party in such transcendental fraud. Next verse. While Sanjaya was thus speaking, Sri Narada, the powerful devotee of the Lord, appeared on the scene carrying his tamburu. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers received him properly by getting up from their seats and offering obeisances. Purport. Devarshi Narad is described herein as Bhagavan, due to his being the most confidential devotee of the Lord. The Lord and his very confidential devotees are treated on the same level by those who are actually engaged in the loving service of the Lord. Such confidential devotees of the Lord are very much dear to the Lord because they travel everywhere to preach the glories of the Lord in different capacities and try their utmost to convert the non-devotees of the Lord into devotees in order to bring them to the platform of sanity. Actually, a living being cannot be a non-devotee of the Lord because of his constitutional position. But when one becomes a non-devotee or non-believer, it is to be understood that the person concerned is not in a sound condition of life. The confidential devotees of the Lord treat such illusioned living beings, and therefore they are most pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that no one is dearer to him than one who actually preaches the glories of the Lord to convert the non-believers and non-devotees. Such personalities as Narad must be offered all due respects, like those offered to the personality of Godhead himself. And Maharaj Yudhishthira, along with his noble brothers, were examples for others in receiving a pure devotee of the Lord like Narad, who had no other business save and except singing the glories of the Lord along with his veena, a musical stringed instrument. Om Ganatimanandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is an interesting description here. Prabhupada, of course, he's describing Narad's arrival in the midst of the court when the discovery was made that Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura had disappeared in the middle of the night. Everyone was perplexed, including Sanjaya. Sanjaya, of course, he was intimate, so intimate with Dhritarashtra that Dhritarashtra practically did nothing without consulting Sanjaya. And as you know, from the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first verse is Dhritarashtra asking Sanjaya, when the two armies assembled, what did they do? What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? And then, of course, Sanjaya was imbued with the power. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold. Sanjaya was imbued with the power, as Srila Prabhupada explains, to be like a transcendental television. The battle was taking place quite far away from the palace, at Kurukshetra, at the field of Kurukshetra. So it wasn't anywhere. And of course, Dhritarashtra was blind. He couldn't see what was going on. But Sanjaya, he had the power to be able to see. He was given that by Lord Krishna to be able to relate exactly what was going on in the battlefield. So he described in the first chapter how the armies assembled, how Arjuna, he asked Krishna to pull his chariot between the two armies. He shot the first arrow toward Bhishma Dev in respect, to offer him respect. He said, now we're going to engage in battle. They all blew their conch shells. All that was related by Sanjaya. So Sanjaya was also a very powerful personality. Although he was Dhritarashtra's servant and very much aligned with Dhritarashtra and whatever Dhritarashtra wanted to do, a very faithful servant, Sanjaya was nonetheless a devotee of the Lord. So here, Devarshi Narad arrives in the middle of all this consternation, with Yudhishthira lamenting, where are my uncles, where's my aunt, where's everybody gone? there were guests in the palace, and of course everybody was delighted to see the return of Vidura, and they were taking shelter of his association. So naturally, when a big personality, particularly a devotee, arrives in your house or in your temple, then everybody's there to welcome them, to inquire from them, and everything like that. So when they just disappeared, along with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, everybody was perplexed. So naturally, Yudhishthira was aware of the fact that Sanjaya was the personal servant of Dhritarashtra. So he went immediately to Sanjaya, and Sanjaya said, I don't know where they've gone. I haven't got a clue. And I'm really surprised that my master would disappear like this. Prabhupada describes in so many places how nobody is happy unless they have a master. Just like he gives the example of the dog. The dog is useless, completely useless to anybody unless he has a master. As soon as the dog has a master, he's happy. He's in his position. He knows exactly where he stands. And he dedicates literally, we've seen it so many occasions, the dog will dedicate his life literally to his master, to helping him, to protecting him, to giving the master satisfaction. As soon as the dog sees his master, immediately he's jumping up and down, tail is wagging. So Prabhupada says on so many occasions we should be like the dog. We should become the servant of Krishna. And our whole dedication, our whole focus of our mentality, every single aspect of our fiber, of our very being, is dedicated to serving Krishna and nothing else. So Sanjaya says, my dear descendant of the Kuru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles, speaking to Yudhishthira and Gandhari. O king, I've been cheated by these great souls. Of course, it's not cheating. But Prabhupada goes on to say in the purport, in a kind of a humorous way, that great souls cheat others may be astonishing to know. But it is a fact that great souls cheat others for a great cause. It is said that Lord Krishna also advised Yudhishthira to tell a lie before Dronacharya. Of course, Dronacharya, as we recall from the battle, he could not be defeated. And unless Dronacharya, because he was wiping out all the armies on Arjuna's side, hundreds of thousands of warriors, he was a Maharati. I mean, he could fight tens of thousands of soldiers in one go and kill them. And he was doing that. So it was like, it's described in the Mahabharata, Dronacharya was like a harvesting machine going through a field of wheat at harvest time and just harvesting these soldiers, cutting them down, tens of thousands of them. Nobody could touch him. So Lord Krishna, he saw this is a great danger here. So he told Bhima, go and tell Dronacharya that his son is dead. And then Bhima said, well, he won't believe me. He'll just think I'm lying. And Krishna said, yeah, you're right. Anyway, let's call Yudhishthira. So he called Yudhishthira and told Yudhishthira, go and tell Dronacharya his son is dead. And of course, everybody knows Yudhishthira cannot tell a lie. It's impossible for him to tell a lie. But when he was ordered by Krishna, he hesitated. Go and tell Dronacharya his son is dead. So he whispered, the elephant is dead. And of course, Dronacharya, he heard from Yudhishthira, my son is dead. Of course, under his breath, Yudhishthira was talking about the elephant because Bhima went off and killed the elephant. And so then he could actually speak the truth. And for that hesitation to tell the lie that Krishna told Yudhishthira to say, he had to suffer because it was the order of Krishna. Just like Arjuna, he didn't want to go out in the battle of Kurukshetra, and the whole Bhagavad Gita had to be spoken, and the whole discourse and the exchange of questions and answers went on for nearly an hour before Arjuna was convinced. So Prabhupada is giving the example of himself, that he cheated us by tricking us. He's talking about Western countries. When he came to the West, how he convinced us. He tricked us to give up all our sense gratification and our so-called luxurious lifestyle that we were all used to in the West. And Prabhupada said many, many occasions, said, most of my students, they come from very good families. They're all university educated, and they have good positions. They have, why I never offered them a penny. I never. It's, they have joined me and are fully surrendered. They're sleeping on the floor. They don't even have a bed to sleep on. I remember when I joined in the early days, we just had a little a blanket, or if you were lucky, a sleeping bag, a camping mat, and that was it. 20, 30 devotees in the prasadam hall, sleeping, wake up in the morning, clean the area around where you were sleeping, go and take a cold shower, and the day starts. And it was ecstasy, absolute ecstasy. We were all supposedly living in the lap of luxury, either in the homes of our parents or our own home, running our own business in many cases, as I was, and just gave it all up. Why? Bible says, Lord wanted it, therefore it was a great cause. Satisfaction of the Lord is the criterion of one who is bona fide, and the highest perfection of life is to satisfy the Lord by one's occupational duty. So whatever we're doing in life, Prabhupada, I heard in a lecture the other day, he was saying in India, they call it the caste system. He said, but it's not actually the caste system. It's Varnashram. So the society is automatically divided into the four ashrams and the four varnas. And depending on what your inclination is, it cannot be forced, and it's certainly not done by birth. I mean, I was born into a family of industrialists and engineers, and nothing whatsoever to do with Krishna. Nobody ever heard of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, or to speak of anything else. And somehow or other, I ended up being a devotee. But it's nothing to do with birth. It's by your inclination. And how do you know what your inclination is? Your natural constitutional position. Prabhupada describes it as the constitutional position of the soul. So the foundation of every state, every modern state, is their constitution. All the laws of the land in a state, they have to line up with the constitution. You can't write a law. Even the powerful president or king or prime minister, they cannot write a law that goes against the constitution. As soon as it goes against the constitution, it's challenged and it's defeated, it's thrown out. So our constitutional position, as far as Srila Prabhupada is concerned, is that of servant of the servant of the servant. We are the servant eternally of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's no getting away from that. So the verdict of the Gita and Bhagavatam. So let's read those two verses. It's quoted here in the footnote, 1846. Yata pravitir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swar kamanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. And elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, better to perform your own job, your own work, with imperfections than to try to imitate somebody else's work perfectly. It's a waste of time. And if you recall, the other verse that is quoted is a verse you've already covered in chapter 2, verse 13, if you remember that, when we did divinity and divine service. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions and orders of life, is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter what our role is, what our position is, what our title, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, Grihastha, whatever it might be, Brahmacharya. It makes no difference. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Sudra. I'm not any of these things. I don't belong to any of these castes or creeds. That's why Krishna says, if you remember the last chapter of the Gita, give up all varieties of religion. Of course, there was none of these major religions at Krishna's time. There was no Christianity, there was no Buddhism, and there was no Islam. There was none of these religions. They came much later. But yet Krishna is speaking of, because people misidentify with other things other than their constitutional position, and they consider that to be their goal of life, that to be their religion. So to avoid that, of course, we have to follow Guru, we have to follow Shastra and Sadhu. This is our constitutional position. So Sanjaya, he was perplexed. I don't know where they've gone. Sanjaya never thought that Dhritarashtra could perform any act without consulting him, but Dhritarashtra's going away from home was so confidential. And elsewhere, we've covered that in the previous chapter. I think it was in chapter 12. So sometimes Prabhupada hits you with these purports, and you don't know where they're coming from. Prabhupada says, when you reach a certain age, then you have to give up family life. You give up family life either voluntarily, or you give up family life by force. By force means at the time of death. And Prabhupada says the best way to give up family life, when you reach a certain age, Prabhupada's talking about the age of 50, that devotees, the male devotees, they should then just pack their bags and just leave home and go off, live in the cave, live in the forest, and become a sannyasi or a vanaprastha, go off and travel around all the different places of pilgrimage with your wife for a few years to gradually get used to the idea of the separation, and then eventually take sannyas. This is renunciation. This is what Vidura came to preach to Dhritarashtra to do. Of course, Dhritarashtra was much older than 50. All his sons have been killed, and he's still attached. But it's not the idea that, we should just then leave home. Prabhupada says in that purport, I forget where it was. I was looking for it earlier, but I couldn't find it. But it was in the previous chapter 13 that we just covered. Prabhupada says that because that's what Prabhupada did. He said, I just left home in the middle of the night. I didn't tell anybody where I was going, and I just walked out the door. And he said it was either tea or me. His wife was so much used to drinking tea, which Prabhupada really was against. And he said, it's either tea or me. So he just left. And years later, he was relating that incident to his disciples in one of the big temples, Los Angeles or New York or whatever. And he said, well, so I left my family, I left my wife, my children, and I was all alone, wandering alone, all over India, until eventually I settled in Vrindavan. And then my spiritual master appeared to me in so many dreams, told me to take sannyas. I eventually took sannyas, But there was no hope for even getting a passport. What to speak of a visa to travel to America? What to speak of the funds to get to America? Or all the permits that you need, the no objection certificate to leave India, and so many things, so many obstacles. Everything was just, all the doors were open. So Mati Morarji, and then Prabhupada says, now, this was on his Vyasa Puja. In one of the temples in the West, I forget which one it was, Prabhupada was relating this whole story of how he came to the West. And he said, so I left, I had no longer any children, no longer any family, but now all you boys and girls, you have become my children. And look at how much you are doing in service to me. He said, but my spiritual master has sent you all to work on my behalf and to work on his behalf. He has sent you all to assist me and in spreading this mission. And Prabhupada says, I cannot begin to thank you enough. Here's Prabhupada thanking his disciples. His disciples are reciprocating with Prabhupada's thanks, and they cannot thank Prabhupada enough. This is love. This is the real exchange of loving reciprocation, where you cannot thank the person who has given you this opportunity to embrace Krishna, to engage in Krishna consciousness, and the person who has given it to you cannot thank you enough for having taken up the process. This is what our job is, to go around and to give this to others. We're not Prabhupada, we're not Acharya, we're not sannyasis. We're lowly servants of the servant of the servant. That is our position. But that doesn't mean that we cannot also contribute in our own small way by preaching this message to others. It's such a wonderful way to exchange and to live our lives. In the first, Sanjaya, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhisthira. So first of all, he was just too emotional. He was just overcome with feelings of separation from Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, because he served them both. And then, when he put the emotion on the side and forget about that, and then what do I do here? The king has asked me a question. Here's the king standing before him, not some small lowly little servant. This is the king. Where's my uncle? You're the secretary. You're the servant of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Where are they? And he couldn't answer. He was completely perplexed. Then when his mind was pacified and he set aside his emotions, then he was in a position to speak. And then, of course, in the middle of all this, the transcendental troublemaker, Sri Narada, he arrives in the middle of all this, as usual, just to stir the pot. The powerful devotee of the Lord appeared on the scene carrying his tamburu. And immediately Maharaj Yudhisthira and his brothers got up, offered him the utmost respect, bowed down before him, offered obeisances, and offered him a sitting place. And Srila Prabhupada relates how, I told you the story before, how Sri Narad appeared at the evening arti in London. And Prabhupada just got absolutely, Jamuna Devi was leading the kirtan on Prabhupada's instruction. Jamuna, she had a beautiful voice. Of course, we listen to Yamuna Devi every morning singing the Govindam prayers. That's the standard practice all over the world. That's Jamuna. And Prabhupada instructed that when George Harrison made that record in the Apple Studios with Jamuna that appeared on Top of the Pops, it was on the English TV Top of the Pops program for more than 6 weeks, the Maha Mantra, going out to every home in the country for 6 weeks in a row, non-stop. But when Prabhupada heard it, he immediately began to cry. When he heard Jamuna singing Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, I said, this should be played in every temple before the greeting of the deities all over the world. So, when the devotees organized that program in London and hardly anybody came, Prabhupada said, no, you didn't see Narad? Because Yamuna was leading the kirtan, and she was playing the harmonium. Prabhupada was singing in the background with all the other devotees, following Yamuna, and playing the kartals. And then suddenly, Prabhupada just became enlivened and was banging the kartals. And Prabhupada took over the leading of the kirtan. And he was singing Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada just went absolutely ballistic on the kartals and was going. And we have that record. That record is there. And you can hear the difference in the intonation and the way in which Prabhupada was singing. And afterwards, and the devotees went also crazy because they didn't know what was going on. They'd never seen this before. This is in the 60s when nobody knew hardly anything. And didn't know anything about these great personalities. So when Jamuna said, Srila Prabhupada, you really took off in that kirtan, and the whole room was just vibrating. Prabhupada said, you didn't see? Narada was there. He was chanting. All the devatas, they all came. Because it is described that the devatas, to participate in the mercy, to gain the mercy of Mahaprabhu, to gain the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the devatas are queuing up to take birth on this planet so as they can participate in the Leela of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have no idea who we're calling, just like, excuse me, just like Queen Kunti. She didn't understand the power of the mantra when she called the sun god, Vivasvan. And Surya appeared, and of course from there Karna was born, but she had no idea. She didn't understand the power of the mantra. Similarly with us, we don't understand the power of this Maha Mantra that we're chanting every day. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I do not understand, I cannot envision within my mind the potency that is contained between the two syllables, Krishna. So this is Mahaprabhu speaking, Krishna himself, combined with Radharani. He is saying he doesn't understand the potency of this two syllables, Krishna. And the amount of potency, the amount of power, and the amount of Shakti that is there contained within this Maha Mantra. That we just, I know for myself, I go through the motions of chanting my rounds every day. But every day I lament the fact of, well, I'm on my last round. I finished my 16 rounds. And then I think back and say, well, how much of those 16 rounds did I actually hear? How much of those 16 rounds did I actually pay attention to the sound vibration of the Maha Mantra? Is my hair standing on end? Am I experiencing horripilation in my body? Is my body not being able to contain? No. I mean, I don't have the same manifestation as Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu is telling us that this manifestation of this horripilation and these pools of ecstasy that melt into pools of ecstasy, as we know when Mahaprabhu was in Puri in the last years of his sojourn on the planet, he just couldn't contain himself. The devotees had to keep him locked in the room in case he would come to harm. And he was crawling on the walls, and his nails were being torn out of his fingers. He was trying to get out through the walls to get out because he was feeling this mood of separation from Srimati Radharani. Absolutely incredible, incredible stuff described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And now eventually he got out. He managed to break open the door and get out, ran down to the beach, and just fell into the ocean. And the devotees came running after him. They couldn't find him anywhere. And eventually, Mahaprabhu, he was caught in the net of a fisherman. And as he was caught in the net of a fisherman, the fisherman took the net into his boat, touched the body of Mahaprabhu, who was just like a lump of flesh. Because the physical appearance of his body was no longer there. It was just like a lump that had just melted into. We talk about pools of ecstasy. This is literally pools of ecstasy. Now, when the fisherman touched Mahaprabhu, he also went into pools of ecstasy, and he was running up and down the beach after getting out of the boat, screaming like a madman. And the devotees, when they saw him, they realized that Mahaprabhu must be in the fisherman's boat. So they managed to recover him. And just by the fisherman, just by touching Mahaprabhu. And this is from the chanting. This is from the Mahamantra. This is the result. And when I look back on it every day when I chant my rounds, I'm lamenting the fact, well, I just went through 16. Did I hear a single syllable? Did I hear even one mantra? So every day I try to build on it and just to focus. The mind is just vroom. It's flying here, it's flying there, it's flying in all directions. Everything is perfectly calm. My mind is perfectly sedate and in perfect unison with the universe and everything like that until I pick up a bead bag. And as soon as I pick up a bead bag, boom, it's like the sunlight. It's just pervasive. The mind just goes everywhere. But this is one of the offenses to be avoided. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnav must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prem. So it's a simple process. Yes, it is a very simple process. But the application of that simple process, that's another story entirely. Those who are fortunate enough to be able to immerse themselves in the Mahamantra and to never stop chanting, Satatam Kirtiyanto Mam, they are very, very fortunate souls indeed. So we should be, this is our constitutional position. I mean, madness, transcendental madness, of course it can't be done, it's not something artificial. We're not talking about sahaja stuff. But transcendental madness, this is our goal. If you read, rather, the conversation between Srimati Radharani and the bumblebee, I mean, it's another world entirely. When Radharani, she just absolutely goes berserk on this bumblebee. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master, Srimati Radharani says to the bee. To a bee. Because she's in madness of separation from Krishna. As you know, in the rasa dance, Krishna's dancing with all the gopis on the rasa lila. That moonlit night, it was September, October, that we celebrate every year. And Krishna's dancing. And of course, Srimati Radharani, she's thinking, oh, Krishna's dancing with me. Just see how lucky I am. And then, of course, immediately he disappears. Immediately. This is Radha. This is Radha. Immediately he disappears to curb the pride. It's transcendental pride. It's not the same pride that we exhibit in pride. But nonetheless, Gajadya Charity Shreshtas, to teach a lesson, he disappeared. And everybody goes crazy then looking for Krishna. Where's he gone? So the whole mood of Vipralamba, separation, immediately comes into the fray. And a part of that was Srimati Radharani's conversation with the bumblebee, where she's accusing the bumblebee of being a spy. You're just a spy for your master, Krishna. I know he's a big cheat. And she just absolutely curses the bumblebee, and then she regrets what she has just said, and then she calls the bumblebee back, who's gone. Where did he go? Oh, no, I hope he didn't go and reveal to him all the things I just said. So then she goes crazy, and the whole thing is just madness, transcendental madness. And this is all contained, not coming. This is contained in the Maha Mantra. All of this. It's available. It's our constitutional position. This is our real life, not all the stuff that's going on outside in the world, and wars here and riots here and fighting this and people disputing this, that, and the other. That's not the reality. That's the Gramya Katha. That's just a diversion from the real transcendental position. That is just to distract your mind, to take you away from Krishna. Don't be bothered with that stuff. Be aware of it. You don't walk into a war zone knowingly. You just avoid it. But it's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with us. Our reality is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Simple. Tateno Kampam Susashiksha Mano, Queen Kunti says. All these calamities come again and again and again. Because when they do, and we're forced into a position where we have nowhere else to turn other than to rely on you, other than to think of you, just like Draupadi in the court, being stripped by Dusasan. She had nowhere to go, nowhere to go. Her husbands had given up. Her husbands were now slaves to Duryodhan. Everything had been lost in the dice match. And then to embarrass the Pandavas even further and to humiliate them even more, they dragged Draupadi from her room out into the court to strip her naked in front of everybody so they could be totally humiliated. And they're pulling off the sari. And what happened? Of course, Krishna is supplying. And she was trying to resist. She's also a Kshatriya. She's the daughter of a king, King Drupad. But she was also fighting Dusasan. But eventually, she's a woman. He's a big warrior. She just had to give up. And then what did she do? Threw her hands in the air. Hey, Govinda. And that was it. Immediately. Reams and reams and reams of saris until finally Dusasan had to give up. He couldn't take it anymore. So this is we just have to get through that barrier of that small lack of faith that is there inherent in all of us. We want to rely on what we're familiar with, the material sphere, the material atmosphere. We rely on that because it's there all the time. It's what we were born into. It's what we've been indoctrinated to accept as being the reality. And it's not that it's not real. Of course it's there. The world is there. We can't deny it. The problems of the world are there. Birth, death, old age, and disease, that follows everybody, no matter who you are, what your position is. But at the same time, as that being the reality, it's also not. Because the ultimate reality is Gopi Bharta Kamalayor Das Anudas Anudas. And this is our real position. So we should try as much as possible, particularly when we're chanting our rounds. Our rounds are the key. That's the key that opens the door to this transcendental world. That just opens the door, and all we have to do is walk through the door. And there we are. We're in it. We're in it effortlessly. But then when we, as Krishna says in the Gita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj confirms it, the mind can be the best friend, the mind can be the greatest enemy. It's up to us how we use it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he said, Prabhupada quoted often, in the morning, beat the mind with a shoe. In the evening, beat the mind with a stick. But just keep beating it. You have to be the controller of your mind. Don't allow your mind to control you, because then who is the master? You're the master of the mind. So if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I had no opportunity to prepare for this class. If you don't mind, I would like to take questions and go off and get a drink. I just come out of a shower, and I was caught in a shower. I was like a drowned rat before I came on the screen. Tried to dry off, so I'm feeling a bit cold now, and I need to get a hot drink and get some sustenance in my body. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this class, and I'm really, really sorry to ambush you in the last 5 minutes. And thank you again for this wonderful class. I mean, it didn't feel like that you are not prepared for this class. It was wonderful the way the examples you gave, and the Brahma Geet that you reminded us of, how Radharani was chastising the bee.
Yeah.
Okay, I open this up to questions and comments. If there are any. If there are no, I would like to prabhuji to get a hot drink, because I know he was really drenched as soon as he entered his house. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, Prabhuji. As usual, you bring back all the memories, beautiful memories of Srila Prabhupada. Many of us haven't met Srila Prabhupada, but still we hear from devotees like you, great devotees like you, all the good things, all the nice moments you spent, and how he started this movement, and how much he suffered, how much he gave himself to this movement. This is very nice, and I love these stories. You know, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Sometimes we think that Narad Muni is the one who set everything on fire, but no, he is sent by the Lord. We think sometimes, okay, Narad Muni is coming, something bad is going to happen, but if he is like kind of an instigator. If he doesn't instigate, things would not move. Like, for example, when he went to Kamsa, after Devaki and Vasudev's first child was born, he went to Kamsa, because Kamsa felt compassionate about this little baby and said, take it home. I'm not going to kill this, because your eighth son is my enemy. So then the demigods, all the demigods were thinking, what happens if Kamsa leave all the children alive, and Krishna doesn't come? What will happen to us? So they wanted just to fasten, like quick, make it happen fastly. So they send Narad Muni. They say, you go and you explain to Kamsa that if you count 8, it can be from 1 to 3 up to 8, or it can be 8, 7, 6, 5, like this, ascending or descending order. So then Kamsa wants, Narad Muni wants to see Kamsa. And there also, because they wanted Krishna to come fast, they wanted this process to move. And Narad Muni is everywhere where Krishna wants him to go. As we know, Narad Muni is a mind incarnation of the Lord. So he does his job accordingly. He's a very great personality. We should respect him in all tree of life. Whenever we see, even one person was telling, even if we watch Indian movies and we see somebody acting an Narad Muni, we should never think bad, because that is his position, and he's a great personality. But thank you, Prabhuji. You also you are like a dutas for us, because you have the experience with Srila Prabhupada, and now you're relating to us. Very nice. Every time when I listen to you talking about Srila Prabhupada, I'm more interested to know about Srila Prabhupada, that what is written in the Bhagavatam. Thank you,
Yes.
Prabhuji. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare
Haribol.
Krishna.
Thank you very much. And if you remember, as obviously you do, how Magrari was saved by Narada. I mean, Magrari was a really,
Yes,
really bad.
Vikrari, he was a very bad hunter. He would just shoot the animals and leave them to die. And in this
Yes.
way, he would enjoy. Then Narad Muni saved him. Narad Muni saved Bhatnagar, who is Valmiki. Narad Muni saved him. He also was a decoy,
Yes.
and make him become. Narad Muni saved the 12,000 sons of Daksha Prajapati. They went.
Yes.
Yeah, they went to the forest to meditate, and then he made all 12,000 become brahmachari. And in this way, Dr. Prabhuji got very angry and cursed Narad. He said, Narad, because you're constantly taking my sons and making them into devotees, I curse you that you will not stay for more than a minute in one place. That's why he's traveling around all the time. And
Yes.
he also is a guru of Parvati Devi, the wife of Lord Shiva.
Exactly.
He is also he got the prasetas, the 10 sons of prasetas. So many. He's guru of Dhruv Maharaj, of Prahlad Maharaj, 5 years old Dhruva, but the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and
Exactly.
he achieved the Lord. So
Exactly.
many Narad Munis everywhere. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Srila Prabhupada describes him as the transcendental spaceman. He travels throughout all the universes and even goes to the spiritual world and comes back again to this insignificant planet Earth to give us his benediction and the benediction of his association. We are so fortunate. He came to London.
Yes, he does. He does. You know, these personalities, like even Hanumanji, wherever there's Ram Katha, he's present there, but we don't have the kind of transcendental divine eyes to see these personalities. They are still around, you know. Hanumanji, wherever there's, like, for example, at the moment, there is Ram Navami going on everywhere, but he is around. Right. Everywhere he is around. He asked that boon to Lord Ram. Lord Ram said, you don't go to Saket, you stay here. So he said, to give me that, and Lord Ram said, wherever there will be, no, he asked, give me that opportunity, wherever there will be your name, your people are chanting your name, I should be there. So Lord Ram said, okay, I'll give you that boon. But Mother Sita stopped him. Mother Sita said, do you know what he's asking for? Lord Ram said, yes. And so you have to give him like millions and millions of bodies so that he can be present everywhere, because everybody is chanting at the same time. Yes. So he got that boon. So Hanumanji is there. That's like Narad Muni. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
We have, if you remember when I was with you there in Eldoret, we had a very nice association with Atul Krishna Prabhu. And Atul Krishna is now here in London. I'll be going to see him next week. He's giving a Ram Katha at the Manor for the whole period of the Ram Navami period at the end of the month. So he's going to be here for quite a few weeks. So I'm going to have the benefit of his association. He called me yesterday, and it was great. It's so nice to meet devotees like this who can speak so nicely and give this Ram Katha and enliven us. This is what we need. We need to be enlivened with each other's association. And it's so much. That was just a chance meeting. I met him for one day in Eldoret, the program in that Mataji's house. The Meru lady, if I remember, and with the big giraffes. I remember the big giraffes. I was trying to steal them, but she caught me. So so now we have a lifelong friend. It's so nice. You meet devotees per chance, no matter where we go. And like you said, we have Hanumanji, we have Narada attending all these functions, and we have to gain the transcendental vision to be able to realize their association and take advantage of their association. Jai, thank you very much, Mataji, for your remarks. Very kind of you.
Hare Krishna. Let us all
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare
and
Krishna.
chant
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to glorify Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Hari Hari Bol.
His grace with
Prabhuji,
you.
where are you in London?
Yeah.
Prabhuji, do you live in London?
Jai.
I'm sorry.
Do you
Prabhuji
live in
lives in
London?
Birmingham.
I'm in
Oh.
Birmingham. I'm in Birmingham. So